Hello and welcome back. I haven't made a video for a long time, so let's
That's who I am as a
go.
person. But we live in a world now with TikTok videos 5 or 6 seconds long. There's no content.
Do you think women are the property of men?
No.
That is the question we will address. And by the way, I love ASMONGOLD. To me, he's a extremely intelligent guy. He finds arguments and ways of thinking that I just can't. Well, I guess I'm just a different person. But let's address that question.
The point I was making...
Why have you said they are?
Because I made a religious point. I said that when a man marries a woman...
By the way, I disagree with Tate. The answer is
the woman's
yes.
father walks her down the aisle, and hands her away to the man. Traditionally, this is what it says in the Bible.
Well, bro, like, I think that is fucking hard cap. Like, I've seen him talk about the exact same thing with, like, only...
And now, unfortunately, I disagree with
fans, etc. Like, this has been a point that he's brought up multiple times without the context of religion as well. I'm not buying this one.
I'm a religious person. I believe in God. I live in the most
So you
religious
do
country in the world.
think that the woman becomes the men?
I think she takes his last name.
I mean, let's watch the clip that you said
That's
about
very
so that
different.
we can get it in context.
I don't know if you guys can hear my cat.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes. When a bride is walking down the aisle to marry the groom, the father walks next to her and gives her away. True or false?
Absolutely.
But I've been married twice, as it turns out, and on both.
Well, it's like if I tell you guys in chat that I'm doing a giveaway for the moon, and I give somebody the moon, that doesn't mean that you own the moon, because I never owned the moon, and you can't own a person just the same as you can't own the moon.
And that is why we disagree. Okay. How to even start addressing this? Well, okay, first, in law, on piece of paper, you are true. Yes, you do not really own a person when you marry that person. That would be slavery. And slavery is outlawed. So, then fair enough. We want slavery to be outlawed. But, me and you, ASMONGOLD, have the same issue as Piers and Tate over here. Piers's argument, just like your argument, is based on law. Tate's argument, just as my argument, is based on, well, humanity and feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings, right? Well, facts don't care about your feelings, but what is the fact? Fact is that people have feelings. Fact is that people feel things that, quote unquote, should not feel according to law. But they do. So, let's ask the big question. Do I think that women are property of men when those women marry those men? I would say in 80% yes. And what most people would do right now is, okay, that's not true. Law says it's not true. No point in thinking about it. This guy is misogynist, a misogynist, and the end of the subject. He's wrong. All right? The end. No point in thinking further. Let's not think about what is true and what is not true. That's the end of the conversation. Misogynist, boom. That is what I try to eliminate from people. Guys, have an open mind. If you thought that, if the thought about the word misogynist appeared inside of you, in your brain, that means there is some programming inside of you. What the only thing you should think is, and quite frankly, I don't like that I'm saying this because I just said what you should think, right? Telling people what to do. Well, what I am telling people to do is to ask question why. I don't find that wrong, because that is how I wanted to end that statement. What you should think instead of misogynist is ask a question, why? Well, this will explain everything. The question was incorrect. The question was, do I feel that that women are property of men when those women marry those men? Let me ask a different question. Do I think that men that marry women are property of those women? I will answer in 70% yes. And now I am a misogynist and a misandrist. How can I be both at the same time? If you thought that I was misogynistic, well, you just made a fool out of yourself. I can't be both at the same time. So, the question itself was incorrect. The true question is, when two people marry each other, is there a feeling of owning that person? Owning is like property, right? Does that happen? Well, to me, the answer is definitely yes. There is a feeling of owning that person, and you can find examples of that feeling in some wording, in some words, like, and some actions. As Tate said, like a father walks the woman down the aisle. Now, on a piece of paper in law, that doesn't mean that father just agreed that his daughter is put into slavery towards that man, right? Marriage is not a contract of slavery. Slavery is something completely different. But there is some sense of ownership in that marriage. What other examples do we have? Well, how about the word belonging? When a man marries a woman and a woman marries a man, they belong to each other. What do you think the word belong means? There is no ownership there. There is no quote-unquote property there. Not even the slightest. Oh, but there is. Now, we can address this. We can think about what exactly does that mean. Well, there is a sense, there is a feeling somewhere that that person has some form of responsibility towards you. Like being faithful. What does it mean, being faithful, right? Why is there a requirement like that in the first place? Well, because that person belongs to this person, right? If there are no restraints towards that person, how can you... If there are restraints towards that person, that only one person, how can you say that that person's freedom of choice was not limited? Well, what is exactly limiting freedom of choice? Is that not a form of ownership? There are many, many questions that can be asked over here. But the thing is, I said in 80% when it comes to women and 70% when it comes to men, right? When a woman marries a guy, it's in 80%. We can have a discussion about what is the real percentage. Why do I think that it's 70 here and 80 here? Well, I will give you an answer, because mostly for men, they're more territorial and it's more important for them, that feeling. That is why. But the real percentage, it depends on the person, how important that is for that person. So we won't find the real percentage of that ownership thing. But it is disingenuous to say that there is no ownership or being a property of a person in the slightest, in a percentage, because there is.
I'm not a fan of this. Yeah, I think this is very weird. The owning people and then being their property. It doesn't. I'll take. Wait a second. So what's the problem with what I'm saying here? The implication is that the father owns the girl, which is not true, and then the other.
On a piece of paper, yes, it's not true, but he feels that. It's like with marriage or children, whatever example you will take. When a woman gives birth and she is being handled, that child, is there not a feeling of ownership from that woman towards that child? That child is hers? What do you think does that mean, that child is hers? Now, we can agree on a piece of paper it's not true, but it does happen. So what does that mean? That means we created law that does not exactly work the way humanity works. There is a form of responsibility. You can say that because someone feels that there is responsibility towards another person, that does not mean that that person owns that person, because just there is some form of responsibility. And that is true. I will use an example of police. Just because police has responsibility of protecting the populace, does that mean police owns the populace? No, it doesn't. But is there no form of ownership there? On a piece of paper, in the law, where it says that police has to protect and do things towards populace, right? There is zero ownership there. But if you would take a policeman, just let's use a simple policeman as an example. And that policeman feels the need to protect the populace. Walks on the patrol, sees a person that smiles and thinks to himself, yes, you go on with your life, smile, I will be here protecting you. I will be always here, and I stand guard for you to live your life, to do what you're doing. There is no, are you saying there is no sense of like ownership? There is only pure responsibility that is written on a piece of paper in those words? No, that's not all that there is. There is a feeling inside of that person. Just as the same policeman, when sees a crime, he would not go and prevent that crime because the piece of paper says he needs to. He would do that because he feels he needs to. And that feeling, I don't think that that feeling can happen without a sense of ownership towards that populace, that person. A more personal approach to responsibility. Let's call it like that. That responsibility that the police has, that policeman takes it to a personal level. When that policeman takes it to a personal level, that's where the feeling of ownership happens. So the question is, does that policeman do something wrong? By feeling a sense of responsibility through ownership towards crime happening and protecting people? I will say no. No. There is nothing wrong there. Just as in marriage, just as in children. We do own our children. We have a feeling that those children are ours, and there, to some degree, those children are our property. It is still outlawed. Law says we have responsibilities towards those children, but law doesn't say that those children are our property. But to some degree, we do feel it. So is law right or wrong? Should that be in the law? Well, those are different questions that we can address in a different conversation.
The implication that's built off of that is that the husband owns the girl. Neither of these things are true. And he's using one thing that's not true to basically rationalize a second thing that is also not true. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with what I'm saying.
Okay, I will... Okay, let's address this. Tate's argumentation and what has been presented by Piers, I do understand why you see this. You say this because the connection between ownership and marriage has not been really presented in that example, and that is a mistake from Piers. Piers made that mistake. A journalist's job is to seek the truth. Piers acts as he already knows the truth. And I already made one video, but I made a mistake with the screen over there, so I deleted it. Piers makes that argument a bit later on.
What's this here? It's bigger and older issue. Women are supposed to take the last name of their husband in marriage. Yeah, I owns a responsibility. Nobody talks about ownership. Listen, you want to take responsibility for somebody. I think that, yes, you can very easily say that somebody is responsible. But something being your property and owning something does imply a certain level of responsibility. But being responsible for something and focusing on the ownership element is very misleading.
Occasions, I didn't believe that the woman was being handed to me as chattel, as property.
Okay, this is what I was talking about. This is the Pierce's argument. He is talking about his own opinion. That's the problem. Journalist's job is to find the truth. If you are seeking the truth, that means you can't have your own opinions about something. You are allowed only to ask questions. Why? Because you don't know what the truth is. That should be your approach as a journalist. You don't know if what Tate says is true or not, and you're asking questions to find out if what Tate says is true or not. You just made a statement, Piers, of your own opinion, and you you were asking questions that prove your own opinion, right? As I said before, the question, is a woman property of a man when that woman is marries that man? That's the wrong question. You should never ask that question, Piers. That's just like pushing an agenda, proving your view, your way of thinking right, and his way of thinking wrong. That's not what a journalist should do. You failed as a journalist over here, Piers. Sorry. So, ASMONGOLD just made the argument about property, and he's right, and I already addressed that with the policeman example. I was making a different point, and I forgot about what was the different point. Something about the journalistic part. I don't remember. Well, let's play. Maybe I will.
Perhaps the way the reason I'm asked that question.
Oh, all right. I was talking about the connection, right? ASMONGOLD, you were saying that because the connection has not been presented in a way that shows that property to some degree. Well, as I said, that is like pushing an agenda. The connection there wasn't supposed to be made. Pierce's job was to check if there is a connection. He wasn't doing that, so that connection was never presented to you. Thus, you answer incorrect questions and you give wrong answers to what you see, because what you see is wrong. Pierce failed in his job, thus you're commenting on something that was not presented, thus your conclusion is wrong. That's what happens when journalists suck. That when journalists are not really journalists. The connection has not been made. I made that connection to you, so go ahead and respond to me. Is there a feeling of ownership? Do you really think there is none? 0? All right, go ahead and respond. I'll hear it. And my agenda, I'm not saying that I don't have an agenda. Yes, I do. The thing is, my agenda is for people to not have agenda. Is to have critical thinking, to ask questions why, to seek the truth. So I do have an agenda. But I don't think that agenda is hurtful. And I will respond towards what you will say with that agenda. That's it. If you will respond, I mean. Come on. ASMONGOLD responding to me, that would be kind of silly. But it's kind of a wishful thinking, isn't it? Yeah. Anyways, have a good one, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.